Do you remember MP3 players? They used to look like this. They were small portable devices that would let you play the music that you owned without connecting to the internet, without notifications, without needing to set up an account, without having to pay a monthly fee, and most importantly, without distractions. I'm a little bit old school and nostalgic when it comes to the whole music listening experience when I'm here at home. I usually like to play music using CDs or vinyl. However, when I'm on the go or when I'm traveling or when I'm at the gym, this is what I bring with me, an old school MP3 player. I love just not being able to get distracted using a cell phone and just having a dedicated device to just play music, and that's it. So this guy right here was my very first MP3 player that I ever owned. I bought this one back in 2004, and it is the Dell DJ. It has 20 gigabytes of internal memory, and it was supposed to be a competitor of the original iPod. I couldn't afford an original iPod back in the day, so I had to buy this one from Dell. However, this was a great MP3 player, especially for the time. Plenty of internal memory, the sound quality was fantastic, physical buttons. It also had this little wheel that was very easy to use. And surprisingly, this guy still works. After so many years, it doesn't hold a charge, but it will still work if I plug it into the wall. After this guy, I ended up using different iterations of Apple products or iPods. My favorites of all time were the iPod Shuffles. I love those guys, especially while working out or at the gym. Great MP3 players. Eventually, those ones ended up breaking for me. So I ended up buying this one as a replacement back in 2012, I think. This is the iPod Touch. However, I do not consider this an MP3 player in its traditional sense, as I will explain later in the video. Still a great player, and it will still work, and the battery works pretty well still after so many years. Eventually, I ended up buying this guy right here to replace my iPod Shuffles. This is the SanDisk Clip Sports Go. A fantastic MP3 player as well, very reminiscent with this clip of the traditional iPod Shuffles. Great sound quality. It will play FLAC or lossless files, physical buttons. You can add playlists as well. Excellent MP3 player. However, this one ended up breaking as well a few years ago. So to replace this one, I ended up buying this guy from a known brand name manufacturer. I made a video about this one a few months ago in my channel, so you can check it out in case you want to see the details of this one. It's very similar to the SanDisk one. However, the sound quality on this one is just not great. So after so many years, all these three brand name products have been discontinued by their manufacturers. That leaves only generic brands like this one from a company called AFU, so a Chinese generic brand. And the only brand name product that remains is this guy right here. This is the Sony Walkman NWE394. The last remaining MP3 player of its kind from a brand name manufacturer. So what exactly is an MP3 player? And yes, I know that you could, if you wanted to, you could play your own MP3s using a smartphone like this iPhone or even the iPod Touch that I showed you before. Yes, those are, you can play MP3s using those devices. However, to me, those are not the traditional MP3 players that I'm referring to in this video. To me, for an MP3 player to be kind of like the classic definition of an MP3 player, should meet the following 5 characteristics. Number 1, it should have physical buttons. You should be able to control the device using the physical buttons without needing to actually look at the device. Number 2, the device should have its own unique user interface. So it shouldn't be an iOS device or Android. It should run on its own user interface, like in this case, the NWE394 from Sony has its own unique and independent user interface. Number 3, the device should have its own 3.5mm connection for an analog wired connection. Bluetooth connection would be nice to have, but to me, a traditional MP3 player has an analog output for your wired headphone connection. Number 4, the MP3 player should not be able to connect to the internet. So that means no Wi-Fi connection. So in the case of these 3, you cannot connect directly to the internet using those devices. Yes, you can technically connect it to a computer and then transfer your files, But to me, a traditional MP3 player should be completely unplugged or unconnected to the web. And lastly, number 5, and the most important characteristic of an MP3 player in a traditional sense, is that the focus should be 100% on music. Yes, I know that in some MP3 players you can actually watch videos, or you can even look at photos, or do anything else with a smartphone, like look at your calendar or whatever. But to me, a traditional MP3 player should just focus on the music listening experience. So here it is, the Sony Walkman NWE394, the last remaining MP3 player from a brand name manufacturer of its kind. And here's where I'm going to have to give a big disclaimer, because I know that Sony, as well as some other third parties, they still manufacture other kinds of digital audio players that are mainly aimed at audiophile markets. But to me, those ones are not MP3 player in their traditional sense. Those to me are more like Android-based devices where you can actually still play MP3s. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a closer look at the Sony Walkman NWE394. First of all, this guy meets all the requirements that I mentioned before that any MP3 player should have. It has physical buttons here in the front with this nice playback wheel, so you can control the playback without having to look at the actual screen of the device. It does have a volume rocker here on the side and a hold button. And in the bottom it has a 3.5mm headphone jack to connect it to your wired headphones, and the micro USB connection to charge it and to transfer the files from your computer. It also has the nice and old school Sony Walkman logo here on the back, and some product information here in the bottom, and you can also connect it to a wrist strap right here in the corner of the device. And it also has the small reset button. And that's about it. This is a no-thrills kind of device. It's strictly focused on music and playing music and listening to the radio, because this one does have the nice FM radio function, and it does use the headphones, the wired headphones, as antennas, as an antenna to listen to the FM radio. Older versions of this MP3 player had the capability of playing video, so you could actually transfer videos and watch videos with this device. This newer version doesn't have that feature anymore, but honestly I don't know who would want to watch a video with this tiny screen. What does remain in this MP3 player is the ability to look at photos. So if you go to this section right here and select it, you can actually load pictures using your computer. And I actually loaded a picture here of my dog, and you'll see how it works. It's very slow. And yeah, just the image here on this tiny screen is going to be so small that honestly I don't know who would want to watch pictures using this tiny MP3 player. So quickly, just a few specs about this device. First of all, it does have an 8 gigabytes of internal memory, which is not that much for today's standards, and it does not have expandable memory, so you cannot add a micro SD card to this for additional storage. However, it is good enough for me. I usually can load about 1200 songs here, and it works just fine. It plays PCM, AAC, WMA, and MP3 files. However, it will not play lossless or FLAC files, so it may be a deal breaker for you in case you're an audiophile, but to me, I don't care about that. I usually just play MP3s with this guy. The specs do say that this has 35 hours of battery life. To me, it has been a little bit lower than that. It does have an FM tuner, like I said before, and it does use the headphone wires as an antenna. And you can have 30 presets on the FM radio. It also has a 5-band equalizer, which you can also adjust manually. And it has a micro USB connection here in the bottom, so it does not use USB-C. So one quick thing about playback, we're using this Sony Walkman. First of all, you have to load your files using your computer, which is very easy to use. You can just drag the files into the folder of the MP3 player, or you can also use Windows Media Player to transfer the files. And what you'll do is go here and you can play the songs either through all the songs and just play them randomly. You can also use the shuffle feature. That's the way that I like to use this device. I use it essentially kind of like as a radio, but with my own MP3 files. So you can just press play, and you can press here option, and you can go to play mode, and I like to go to shuffle, and then go back, and then you can shuffle through all the songs that you loaded into your MP3 player. And that works really, really great. Another way to do it is also you can go, like as usual with any kind of MP3 player, you can play by album, by artist, by genre, if you had that information loaded into your MP3 files. And also you can use playlists. However, this playlist feature can be a little bit finicky. As far as I can tell, if you just drag the files using iTunes or Windows Media Player, it will not create playlists, or it won't transfer your playlist from your computer to here. It will transfer the files, but it won't transfer the file order based on the playlist that you set up in your computer. The only way that I found out to use the playlist feature is to use an older software. By old, I mean like 10 years or older, called MediaGo. That's the only way to transfer playlists and to use the playlist feature in using this MP3 player. Now, if you don't want to use that old software, you can always transfer your files using a specific folder that you create inside the MP3 player. And then you can open that folder using this folder feature right here. So you can go and actually play. It will create a folder for each of the artists, but you will see whatever folder that you create in your computer and transfer here, you will see it here. But one word of advice, it will still play the songs in alphabetical order. If you want to play them on a specific order, you're going to have to add numbers to the beginning of the file themselves. And if you connect it to your car using the provided USB cable, your car should recognize it if you go to Media. And it's right there. It should show up as Walkman, as one of your connected devices. And you will be able to play the music from your MP3 player directly using the controls from the car. So you can fast forward, you can go back, you can put it on shuffle as well, without having to use your Walkman itself. You can control everything from your car's control. So this one currently sells for about $75 on Amazon or on the Sony website. I'll put a link in the description in case you want to pick one up. But honestly, these guys do sell out occasionally. Whenever I go into the listing on Amazon, many times it shows up sold out, and you can get it on black or red. So just a quick review of the Sony NWE394. As you can tell, I love this MP3 player. I'm a huge fan of this form factor. I love to be able to play the music that I own on digital files, especially while traveling or on the go or while exercising. The sound quality on this guy is excellent. Even if you cannot play lossless or FLAC files, if you have high-resolution MP3 files, they're going to sound just fine, especially if you pair it with some really good headphones or wired headphones. I also love the FM radio feature. Especially while traveling, I like to hear what locals are listening to in the radio. Even if you cannot understand what they're saying, if it's in a different language, if you're traveling overseas, I still like to listen to the music that the locals are listening to on FM radio. And lastly, I like that it is a dedicated device to listen to music. I love just taking this somewhere to the gym or on a walk and not having to be distracted by a cell phone with notifications or social media, email, whatever. You're just living in the moment and just listening to music. That's it. I love that about this device. And however, this MP3 player for sure is not perfect. I can think of a couple of things that I don't like about this, or some negative aspects at least. First of all, some playback can be a little bit slow, especially if you use the playlist feature that I talked about before. If you go, for example, for a playlist that I know this one has, I think 33 files. I just pressed the play button. Look how long it takes to open the playlist. It can be quite slow when opening some playlists that have several tracks in them. And it is about 33 songs in here, and it's not really 100 or anything. It took a long time to open. I definitely don't like that about this MP3 player. I think they should have improved the speed on this device for sure. Another thing that is not a big deal for me, but it could be for a lot of people out there, especially audiophiles, the fact that it doesn't play lossless or FLAC files could be a deal breaker for a lot of people out there. To me, it's not a big deal. And also, another thing that is not a big deal for me is that it doesn't have Bluetooth. So I think a lot of people are just used to living in a wireless environment or world. So I can see some people may not like the fact that it doesn't have Bluetooth connection for wireless headphones. But to me, that's just fine. And finally, I gotta recommend picking up one of these while you still can. If you're a fan of this form factor, kind of like the traditional MP3 player form factor, if you like owning the music that you play and not having to rely on streaming like Spotify or Apple Music, and if you're a digital minimalist, you don't want to, let's say, bring your cell phone everywhere. If you just want to go on a trip or you want to go to the gym and not get distracted by social media, by email, by notifications or anything, you might want to pick up one of these guys. It's a great MP3 player and I highly recommend it. I actually like this guy so much, I ended up buying another one. A brand new one from the Sony website. It sells for about $75. You can also pick it up right now from Amazon, but like I said before, they do tend to sell out pretty quickly. And this guy right here is the same version, but it is in black. And from what I saw somewhere in here, right here, manufactured in 2016. So I do believe that they're just selling the remaining stock of this. So it is new all stock from 2016. So I predict that eventually they will discontinue this great MP3 players, the Sony Walkman NWE394. Let me know what you think about this MP3 player in the comments. Would you use one of these now in 2025? I would love to hear your comments in the comment section. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye-bye.